everybody, so with the release of Pixar's Luca, I thought it'd be a great time to actually give an updated version of my ranking of all the Pixar films from worst to best. I've always loved Pixar as a kid, grew up as they were getting popular with Toy Story and all those other films. Even as an adult, I still look forward to every single Pixar film just because they're such a great studio and bring us some really great animation. Ranking the Pixar films is a very difficult task because they have so many phenomenal titles under their belt, but before I get into my actual ranking for all the Pixar films, make sure you leave yours down below in the comment section because that's part of the fun of this all, having that discussion with you guys down below, because you're going to have so many different wide varieties of rankings. Whether you've seen Luca or not, make sure you post them down below. When you do see Luca though, if you want to update it, you definitely can, because it will be out on Disney Plus this weekend. But without further ado, then let's get right into this ranking. With my number 24 pick, I have The Good Dinosaur. For me personally, I have tried to watch this film several times, but it just does not feel very Pixar to me. There's a lot of faults here. The animation style, the look and tone of the film overall, it just doesn't gel that well altogether, and like I said, it doesn't feel very Pixar to me. Even as the story tries to give us these emotional beats with these dinosaurs, it's probably the Pixar film that I watched the least, and it just feels very average overall to me. With my number 23 pick, I have Brave. For me, nothing really works about this film. I think it is probably one of the more boring films because I really didn't connect with the actual main character itself, Merida. There's certainly some intriguing stuff inside of Brave, but for the most part, it feels like it is kind of having an identity crisis and doesn't know what it wants to be. So it is kind of quite bland overall, and I'm still shocked that this film actually won the Academy Award that year because a lot of the films in the category were a lot better. You know, Paranorman, Wreck-It Ralph, Frankenweenie, all of those films I enjoyed a lot more than Brave. My number 22 pick, I have Cars 2. This was a weird one because you took the spotlight away from the main character in the first one, Lightning McQueen, and you give it to Mater of all characters. You have to commend them for trying to do something kind of fun here with this spy thriller story, but for the most part it just felt kind of lazy to me in comparison to the original Cars. Some of that spy thriller stuff is actually quite fun, but I think it would have fit a lot better in a different movie besides Cars 2. For my number 21 pick, I have Cars 3. I really am trying to get into the Cars franchise, but I just have never been able to. Thankfully, Lightning McQueen is once again the focus here in Cars 3. I'm very glad we went back to the focus on racing. However, everything around it story-wise kind of falls flat. The plot twist you can tell from a mile away, and overall it could have been executed a little bit better, but I do think this is a slight step up from Cars 2. My number 20 pick, I have A Bug's Life. For me, even as a kid, I was not a big fan of this film, and I definitely don't think it's that much better when I watch it as an adult. I certainly think it's aged the poorest out of all of the early day Pixar films. Nothing about A Bug's Life really hits the mark for me. The look, the feel, and the style. It does have some nice messaging in it within its story, and a pretty evil main antagonist, but for me, it's just one of the films I don't gravitate towards watching very often. In my number 19 pick, I have Finding Dory. This is like the perfect definition of a serviceable sequel. We didn't really need a follow-up to Finding Nemo, but I still think it was a fun enough, entertaining story as we follow Dory. It is for the most part a retread of the same formula from Finding Nemo, but I do think that Dory is a very fun, interesting character, and it is an entertaining time. It's just one of those things where it has some emotional beats that do kind of connect and some of them don't connect. I do think the stuff with Dory and her parents do work really well, but I think that's about it when it comes to all of the emotional payoff. My number 18 pick, I have Monsters University. Much like with Finding Dory, did I need a prequel following the college days of Mike and Sully? No, but I still thought it was a really great time watching it, and it's definitely a fun little interesting prequel in the Pixar universe. While Monsters University doesn't do anything overly impressive with its material, I do think it is very watchable. It is a very safe Pixar film. It's still a lot of fun seeing Mike and Sully in these early days. I do think that if Disney Plus did exist back then, this probably wouldn't have been a theatrical release. Kind of like how they're doing a Monsters Inc. show right now on Disney Plus, Monsters at Work. I feel like it would have been better suited for a Disney Plus kind of original film. At number 17, I have Onward. This one's a tough one for me because I do really like the fantasy elements in the world that we're in. Also, the lead characters are very fun and charming in Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. But overall, the journey that we go on with these characters is a fairly enjoyable one, but overall, it didn't do it for me personally. There are small moments within this adventure that I did really enjoy, but for the most part, its execution did feel quite sloppy. And I am an only child, so I just don't connect with a lot of the emotional beats that this film was trying to say. But that's just a personal experience because I know a lot of people did really connect with that, especially if they have siblings. At number 16, I have Cars. There's a lot of charm in this first installment in the Cars series. I think that the action sequences, the racing is very exciting. Pretty much all of the characters in this film really are unique and stand out, especially Lightning McQueen, played by Owen Wilson. I don't know how Pixar did it when it comes to making me feel emotions for these cars that have come to life, but they did a really great job with this in first installment. I just wish that the other installments in the Cars franchise were just as good as this first one. At number 15, we have Incredibles 2. It took 14 freaking years to get a sequel to the first Incredibles, and I think it's a very solid companion piece to that original film. While I don't think the film is as fresh as the first film, even still though, there's still a great action-packed story here with loads of hilarious moments as we're finally returning to follow up with these characters. I hope that we do get a third Incredibles Incredibles film, but hopefully we don't have to wait 14 years or more. At number 14, I have Wally. It did take a lot of rewatches for me to really get invested in this film, but eventually it did win me over, particularly because of the character of Wally. He is very charming, very cute, very unique in his own shape or form, but also the film itself is very unique in its own right. The film's messaging can be a bit too much at times, and I do think that the first half is a much slower film compared to the second half when there's action and things start actually happening, but I do think it is a very endearing film. Definitely one of those things where either you'll love it or hate it kind of things, because I know a lot of people found this film to be very overrated, or you have it really high up, and I'm still kind of like in the middle about it. Coming in at number 13, Pixar's Luca, the upcoming Pixar release. There's a lot to love about Pixar's Luca. It's such an exciting adventure with a whole lot of heart put behind it. Both of our leads as well are fantastic as we see their friendship blossom throughout the entire film, and on top of that, the film is visually stunning as well, as we always expect from Pixar, but also it enhances it because of the fact that we're in such a gorgeous setting. It also has a fantastic score, and I also found myself really enjoying the messaging of the film when it comes to facing your fears, and also just the whole stuff when it comes to friendship. I think it's a really sweet message, and I highly recommend checking out Luca when it comes out this weekend on Disney+. At number 12, I have Toy Story 4. This is a film that I really did not think that we needed at first glance, because I thought that Toy Story 3 did conclude the arc of the film so well, but I think that this did a great job actually justifying the existence and continuing the franchise on, because it was a very entertaining adventure. All of our new characters were great here, especially Forky and Duke Kaboom, but what really impressed me about this film is just how great the story was and the way that we dove into this exploration of Woody as a character in Toy Story 4. I thought it was quite beautiful with the way how it was done, because I mean this film kind of did have that chip on its shoulder because Toy Story 3 did kind of wrap things up in such a great way. Not just Woody and the gang, but also us as the audience as we grow up with the franchise. But they do deserve a lot of credit for showing us that Woody's story is definitely far from being over. Coming in at number 11, I have Up. This by far probably has one of the saddest openings for any film I've ever seen, but it still is a pretty great film in my opinion. It's got a real solid, eclectic group of characters and a really interesting story that's filled with a lot of solid humor. The overall adventure as a whole isn't one of my favorites when it comes to Pixar, but I think that the emotional weight that we got in the very beginning of the film does stick with me, and it's one of the better all-around moments from any of the Pixar films, even if it does completely destroy my soul. We're finally about to crack into the top 10 for my Pixar ranking. This has been really tough because I love so many of these films. We have 24 films in total for Pixar, but I would probably say I love about 98% of them, because for the most part, almost all these films have some sort of redeeming qualities to them, so there's something to be appreciated, and they're better than some of the other offerings that we get from other animated studios. As I said before, make sure you leave your Pixar rankings in the comment section down below, because that is the fun of it. I am looking forward to seeing all of your different wide varieties when it comes to your Pixar rankings from worst to best. But let's get right into my number 10 pick. Coming in at number 10, we have Ratatouille. Now this is by far one of the most strangest Pixar plots, but I love it. I am a little bit biased because I am kind of a foodie, but I do think the story overall is very well crafted. I do love Brad Bird a lot. I don't think I mentioned that previously when I mentioned some films he's directed in my other parts of the ranking, but I think he does craft a really great story here, in this very crazy concept and delving into some really good themes like pursuing your passion. I think that's something that you can definitely really get behind. It is a very watchable film, and that's why it's my number 10 pick. Coming in at number 9, I have Soul. Now this is a great Pixar film through and through. It actually is very mature with its themes as we explore many different facets of life, but it's done in such a way that it feels very uplifting. As per usual when it comes to kind of the Pixar formula, we once again have some really great characters. The duo that we follow along, Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey, are excellent here. I do love the way that the film incorporates all of its different musical motifs. It's just a film that really connects with me on a personal level. I do wish that I could have seen this in a theater, but it only went to Disney+. I do have the Blu-ray, so I'm hoping that we do eventually get to see this in a theater one day, because that's something that really bothers me because I have not seen this in a theater. Coming in at number 8, we have Inside Out. I love the way that we explore things within Inside Out. I think it's a really fun and interesting and unique idea, the way that we explore the emotions and all that stuff that comes with it, especially as the film has a great way when it comes to visualizing those emotions, and also gives us some really great emotional payoffs as well, and also some great comedy. I think the comedy in this works very well because we see all the wide variety of different emotions that we have inside of us, and they're just portrayed in these fun little characters. It's a very well crafted story all around, and I really like the themes that are behind it, and it's a very mature film for all ages. Coming in at number 7, I have Monsters, Inc. This is personally my favorite Pete Docter film that he's done to date. Such an interesting and unique way to take monsters and have them become these lovable and lighthearted characters. When it comes to duos, I love the dynamic between Mike and Sully, and then you throw Boo in there, and they all have great chemistry, and it's some of my favorite interactions of all the Pixar films. The laughs truly are at an all-time high here, and with an engaging and interesting plot, you throw in some heartfelt moments that we get towards the end when it comes to Boo and Sully, and you have this really perfect Pixar formula. Coming in at number 6, we have Toy Story 2. This is such a great sequel, expanding upon the world even further, giving us another really entertaining adventure as Buzz goes on the hunt to save Woody. The comedic moments in this film are so great, but we also have some really heartfelt moments as well. I love the inclusion of Jesse to the gang. amazing. And I also think that her moment as well with that Sarah McLachlan song is one of those moments that really just destroys my soul and pulls on my heartstrings really hard, because it is one of the saddest moments other than that moment in Up. Also, it has some great messaging when it comes to growing up as well. Once again, another great Pixar adventure in the Toy Story universe. Kind of surprised at this point because Toy Story is fantastic. Coming in at number 5, we have Toy Story 3. Now this to me felt like the perfect conclusion to the trilogy when it comes to the Toy Story films. I grew up watching these characters, so it felt like I was growing up with them, and this was the culmination of all of that. The stakes do feel at an all-time high here as we have this prison break storyline. I think that Lotso also is one of my favorite Pixar villains. Ned Beatty actually just passed away the other day, so RIP to him. But I do love the actual dynamic between them and just the evilness of him. He seems so nice at first, and he's this very evil bear. The emotions in this film are definitely at an all-time high, especially if you're invested in these characters as much as I was growing up. You know, you see these characters, they're like on the brink of death. You think they're actually going to die, and then they thankfully don't. And also just the payoff when it comes to Andy giving his toys to Bonnie and that kind of goodbye and kind of closing the door on Andy. It felt like we were kind of closing the door on us as well, as we were all growing up and we were around the same age as Andy. Really great stuff here. Pulled on my heartstrings as well because that is such a touching moment. If they had ended the Toy Story franchise there, I think it would have been a very perfect conclusion. But it's okay. We got Toy Story 4, so we're definitely going to get some more Toy Story material in the future. Coming in at number 4, we have Finding Nemo. This is probably one of the most quotable Pixar films, and I love so many other aspects about it as well. It's such a rich world, and the main characters are so lovely, and even the side characters as well are very charming. It's just such an overall good time watching Finding Nemo, but it also has some very profound messaging behind it as well. When it comes to doing what it takes to protect your kids while also learning to sometimes loosen up the reins a bit. I think that's a really great message to have in your film. And that's one of the things I think is great about the writing of Finding Nemo. Depending on what your age are when you're watching this, you can take different things out of it, whether you're Marlin, you're trying to be a protective parent, or if you're Nemo and you're off being this adventurous kid. I think that's what's beautiful about Finding Nemo, and that's why I love watching it. Coming in at number 3, we have Coco. I absolutely adore Coco. Pretty much everything about the film hits home to me as someone who has some Mexican heritage in them. Even still, it's such a beautiful story filled with so much depth and emotional weight, and we deal with some very serious topics here like the afterlife, regret, and family. I think that Ernesto de la Cruz is a pretty good villain. I mean, sure, it was kind of obvious that he was going to be the bad guy. I love the dynamic between Miguel and Hector. Such a beautiful film all around that I can't help but watch it all the time, although it is tough to watch around people sometimes. I don't recommend watching it with me when Miguel actually starts singing Remember Me to Mama Coco. That part always makes me cry. It's just such an emotional scene. Coming in at number 2, we have The Incredibles. If it wasn't obvious already, I do love me some superheroes, so it was not hard for me to fall in love with everything inside of this world and all the characters. The world itself is spectacular, especially the family and their dynamic. Each and every one of them is so great and so unique in all their different ways, and it's really easy to get attached to them because they're such great characters. The humor as well is spectacular. Syndrome is probably one of the funniest charismatic villains of Pixar, and you also have Edna Mode, who is a huge scene stealer, and it's not a surprise there. Brad Bird did a really great job voicing Edna Mode. You also have this thrilling score that really enhances all these amazing different action sequences. The themes of the film as well are also something that I really appreciated, especially as I grew up watching the film and understood them more. When it comes to Mr. Incredible having this midlife crisis throughout the film, overall one of my favorite Pixar films, and at this point in time, it's probably my favorite Fantastic Four-esque superhero film. Coming in at number 1, we have Toy Story. Such a classic. It's such an ambitious film, especially for its time. Even after tons and tons of rewatches over the years, this still holds up very well. It's still a fantastic and entertaining film with some great themes for all ages. The Woody versus Buzz Lightyear dynamic is perfect in this film. You can definitely see why Pixar has taken that formula to all these different other films that have really great duos. They're some of my favorite characters in all of media, not just within Pixar. It's just great how they managed to bring out so many emotions and mature themes in an animated film clearly targeted for kids, but it's a clear and concise message that even all ages can enjoy. You know, whether you're an adult or a kid, you're still gonna have a great time watching this because you still find some great things to watch in it no matter how old you are. And there you have it. That is my updated Pixar ranking of all 24 films from worst to best. This has been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of Pixar films to cover here. So thank you as always checking out videos though, because like I said, it is fun to actually have these discussions with you guys. As I said, also make sure you share your rankings down below of all your Pixar films. Make sure you do see Luca when it hits Disney Plus this weekend. I really do wish that we could see it in theaters. Same when it comes to Soul. I am hoping that we do get theatrical releases of them in some shape or form when we actually get more Pixar films in the near future. But thank you so much for checking out my videos though. I really appreciate you checking out this ranking. Make sure to like it, the subscribe button. We'll keep reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more on the channel. But next time, I'll see you guys later.